For 700 years, one dynasty of absolute mad lads carved a kingdom out of India. They went from small-time chieftains to emperors, with their name echoing from the deserts of Rajasthan all the way to Delhi. You might know them as the Chauhans, but this isn't just a story about winning battles. It's an insane saga about being born from a literal sacred fire, epic rivalries that turned brother against brother, and a final insane last stand that changed Indian history forever. This dynasty built unbelievable fortresses that are still standing, and their story will blow your mind. Hello, dear fellows, I am Czar. So get ready because we are unpacking the complete timeline of the Chauhan Dynasty. We're going from their mythical 6th century founding to the peak of their power, and we will watch their crazy, tragic downfall. This is their epic story, their biggest achievements, and the milestones that made them legends. I request the new generation of Chauhan, please do not be proud of them, instead made them proud by your deeds and humanity, and learn to live according to new norms of life. Educate yourself and integrate yourself according to demands of today. Is modern world for centuries, a single dynasty of warriors literally shaped northern India. They were the Chauhans, and their story is packed with legendary origins, insane battles, and a legacy that is still talked about today. We are about to break down the entire timeline of this incredible dynasty from their mythical birth to their final, unbelievable last stand. Let us turn the pages of history about the Agnicola legend and mythical origins. To get the Chauhans, you have to go back to a time of pure myth and legend, to a sacred mountain that was basically a divine hotspot. The craziest and most popular origin story for the Chauhans is the Agnicola, or Fireborn Chauhan legend. This story, made famous in books like the Prithviraj Chauhan, describes a world in total chaos. According to the myth, the greatest sages gathered on Mount Abu to perform a massive fire sacrifice, a yajna, to get rid of demons. But the demons kept ruining the party, throwing blood and bones into the fire. So the sages prayed for a hero. And from the center of the fire pit, a warrior just appeared, then another, and another. 3 clans were born, the Parihars, the Parmars, and the Chalukyas. But even these 3 couldn't beat the demons. So the sages did the ritual one last time. From the flames came a 4th, final, and totally overpowered warrior with 4 arms, each holding a weapon. This was Chahuvan, the first Chauhan. This story was basically a divine birth certificate, proving they were chosen by the gods to be warriors and uniting different clans under one epic origin. This whole fireborn theory blew up around the 10th century, probably because poets wanted to hype up Rajput unity against invaders. But history tells a different story. The Chauhans' own early records don't even mention the fireborn legend. Instead, they say they were Brahmins of the Vatsa Gotra, a priestly family. This probably means they were a family of priests who decided to become warriors, which actually happened a lot back then. Other stories even connect them to the Solar Dynasty and the legendary hero Rama. So while the fireborn myth is an awesome story, historians think they had a more normal beginning. The first real historical leader we know of is Vasudeva. A 14th century text says he took power around 551 CE in Sapatalaksha, near the somber Salt Lake in Rajasthan. Some people even say he magically created the lake itself. In these early years, the Chauhans weren't the top dogs. They were rising stars, but they were basically working for a much bigger empire, the Gurjara Pratiharas. The Pratiharas ran northern India, and the Chauhan were their loyal security guards on the frontiers. They helped fight off early Arab invasions, proving how tough they were. This period was like a long internship. The Chauhan were junior partners in a massive firm, learning how to fight, govern, and do diplomacy. They were just building their power, waiting for the massive Pratihara Empire to finally start to fail. And when it did, the Chauhans were ready to launch their own empire. Dear fellows, let me explain you more a bit about the rise from feudatories to sovereigns. The 10th century changed everything for the Chauhans. The huge Gurjara Pratihara Empire, which had run northern India for centuries, started to collapse. Imagine a giant ancient tree finally rotting from the inside. As it got weaker, smaller trees that had been in its shadow could finally get some sunlight and grow. The Chauhans were ready to grow big. The ruler who jumped on this opportunity was Simaraja. In the mid-10th century, he made a huge move. He gave himself the title of Maharaja Dhiraja, or Great King of Kings. This wasn't just some fancy new name. It was a public declaration of independence. It was like quitting your job and posting on social media that you are now the CEO of your own company. Simaraja was telling the world the Chauhans were their own bosses now. His son, Vigraharaja II, took that new freedom and went on a rampage. This guy was super ambitious and aimed straight for Gujarat, which was controlled by the Chalukya dynasty. He launched a crazy invasion, beat the Chalukya king Mularaja, and proved the Chauhans were a top-tier military power. To celebrate, he built a temple for his family's god, Ashapura Mata, in the city he just conquered. The Chauhans weren't just a local power anymore. They were becoming a massive threat. Their rise kept going into the 11th century, when the Ghaznavids, a terrifying new power from the northwest, started raiding India. The Chauhans were the wall that stood in their way. The ruler Govindaraja III is famous for crushing a Ghaznavid invasion and protecting Rajasthan. But this growth had its own problems. Like a lot of royal families, they had insane family drama. The reign of Chamundaraja, for example, was full of internal fights that nearly wrecked the kingdom. Even with these problems, the dynasty was on a clear path up. They had leveled up from being someone else's employees to being an independent kingdom, strong enough to challenge their neighbors and defend their land. The foundation was set. The next generation of Chauhan kings would build on it, creating a new capital that would become the center of their power for centuries. Dear fellows, politically let us understand more the Ajmer era and consolidation of power. The early 12th century kicked off a new chapter for the Chauhan, all based in an incredible new capital city. The constant threat from Turkic invaders made their old capital at Sambar seem like a terrible spot. They needed a new, super defensible base. This massive job went to the ruler Ajiraja II. Around 1113 CE, he founded a new city in the Aravalli Hills, Ajayameru, which we now call Ajmer. It was a genius strategic move. High on a hill above the city, he built a massive fortress, the Ajayameru Durg, later known as Taragar Fort. This was like putting your king in an unbeatable castle on a chessboard. Its giant walls and perfect location made Ajmer one of the most secure cities in all of northern India. From this new power base, Ajiraja II didn't just stop invaders. He launched successful attacks against the Paramaras of Malwa, making his kingdom even bigger. His son, Arnaraja, kept the legacy going. He faced huge invasions from the Ghaznavids, but absolutely crushed them near Ajmer. To celebrate this huge win, and to cleanse the land that he felt was dirtied by the invaders' blood, Arnaraya built a massive man-made lake, the Anasagar Lake, which you can still see in Ajmer today. But Arnaraja's reign wasn't just about fighting enemies. It was also stuck in the messy drama of Rajput politics. He fought with the powerful Chalukya king of Gujarat, Jayasima Siddharaja. The fight didn't end with a win, but with a political deal. Arnaraja married Jayasima's daughter. But these royal marriages were like a peace treaty with built-in family drama. After Jayasima died, Arnaraja backed a rival to the throne, which started another war that lasted for years. Tragically, Arnaraja's amazing reign came to a shocking end. In a super dark twist, he was assassinated around 1155 CE by his own son, Jagadeva. This act plunged the kingdom into chaos. Jagadeva didn't last long because he was quickly overthrown by his younger brother, a man who would not only get revenge for their father's death, but would push the Chauhan dynasty to its absolute peak. His name was Vigraharaja IV. The Golden Age, Vigraharaja IV. Visaladeva of Chauhan's dear fellows, let me explain you more a bit. The middle of the 12th century, from about 1150 to 1164 CE, was the absolute golden age of the Chauhan dynasty. This incredible era of power, growth, and culture was all thanks to one of the most legendary rulers in the dynasty, Vigraharaja IV, also known as Visaladeva. He took the Chauhan kingdom and turned it into the #1 power in northern India. Vigraharaja IV was a military genius. His biggest flex was capturing Dilika, modern-day Delhi, from the Tomara Rajputs. In a brilliant political move, instead of kicking the Tomaras out, he let them keep ruling Delhi as his subordinates. This was like a hostile takeover where you keep the local managers to run the office, making sure everything runs smoothly. Taking Delhi was a massive win that pushed Chauhan power deep into new territory. But he didn't stop there. He expanded the kingdom's borders farther than anyone before him, winning wars against the Chalukyas of Gujarat and pushing back Muslim invaders, taking over parts of modern-day Punjab. By the end of his reign, the Chauhan kingdom was huge, stretching from the Siwalik Hills to Udaipur, making him the most powerful king of his time. But Vigraharaja IV was more than a conqueror. He was also a huge supporter of art and literature, a rare combo of warrior and scholar. Imagine a heavyweight boxing champion who also writes award-winning poetry. He was a poet and playwright himself, and his most famous work is a Sanskrit play called Harikeli Nataka. And in a total power move, he had parts of his own play carved into the stone walls of a Sanskrit college he built in Ajmer. Tragically, this incredible building was later partly destroyed and turned into a mosque by Qutb ud-Din Aibak. Today, it's known as the Adhai Din Kajompra. But even as a mosque, you can still see the amazing architecture and the carved pieces of Vigraharaja's play, a sad reminder of the insane cultural peak the Chauhans reached. It's like finding a piece of a lost Da Vinci masterpiece that someone else painted over. Vigraharaja IV was a visionary who was the ideal Rajput king. He left behind a powerful, rich, and cultured empire. But golden ages like this don't last forever. After he died, the kingdom had a few weaker rulers, and the stability he created would soon be tested by a young, ambitious, and legendary ruler who would inherit everything: his nephew, Prithviraj Chauhan III. Dear fellows, if we do not talk about the ascent of Prithviraj Chauhan III, the Chauhan history will not be completed. The one name that basically defines the Chauhan dynasty for most people is Prithviraj Chauhan. Born around 1166 CE, Prithviraj III became king of Ajmer in 1177 CE when he was just 11 years old. After his dad died early, his mom Karpuradevi acted as his regent, running the kingdom with the help of loyal ministers. Even as a kid, Prithviraj showed he was a total boss. His first big test didn't come from an enemy army, but from his own family. His cousin, Nagarjuna, thought a young king would be an easy target and started a rebellion to steal the throne. But Prithviraj didn't even hesitate. He marched his army against the rebels with insane speed, crushed the revolt, and ended Nagarjuna's career. It was a clear message to anyone who wanted to challenge him. Even though he was young, Prithviraj was 100% in charge. Once his throne was secure, Prithviraj started a series of huge military campaigns to make himself the undisputed king of northern India. One of his most famous early moves was against the Chandela kingdom in modern-day Bundelkhand. The invasion in 1182 CE is talked about in historical records and wild folk legends. Prithviraj's own records claim he laid to waste the Chandela lands. The folk stories, like the Alha Khand, give a crazier version, telling of a super bloody war. The Chandelas were defended by two legendary generals, the brothers Alha and Udal, who are still heroes in Bundelkhand for their insane bravery. But even with their heroic fight, the Chauhan army was just too strong. The Chandela capital, Mahoba, was sacked, and both sides took massive losses. While we know Prithviraj's raid happened, it seems his control didn't last. The Chandela king, Paramardi, survived and eventually took his capital back. So while it was a huge military win, it was like winning a brutal boxing match but not taking the championship belt home. Prithviraj got famous as an unstoppable conqueror, but he didn't actually gain any new land permanently. More importantly, this aggressive style created a lot of bad blood. The Chandelas, a powerful Rajput clan, were now his sworn enemies. Every victory that made him stronger also left him more isolated. It's like winning every argument with your neighbors. You might feel like you're on top, but now you have no friends. He was creating a circle of angry rivals around his kingdom, a super dangerous situation that would have insane consequences when a much bigger threat showed up from the northwest. Dear fellows, let me dig deep more the rivalries, alliances, and the legend of Sanyogata. As Prithviraj Chauhan's power grew, so did his list of haters. His aggressive moves had already ticked off the Chandelas. Soon he was in fights with the Chalukyas of Gujarat and, most famously, the Gahadavalas of Kannauj. The fight with Gujarat was an old rivalry that eventually just ended in a tie and a peace treaty around 1187 CE. But the most legendary rivalry Prithviraj had was with Jayachandra, the powerful king of Kannauj. And this is where history gets blurry and turns into one of India's most famous romantic legends, the story of Jayachandra's daughter, Sanyogata. Historians still argue if it's real, but its cultural impact is undeniable. According to the legend from the Prithviraj Raso, Jayachandra decided to hold a massive ceremony to declare himself the top king. He invited rulers from everywhere, but Prithviraj, who saw himself as Jayachandra's equal, refused to show up. This was a massive insult to Jayachandra. Meanwhile, Jayachandra's daughter, Princess Sanyogita, had grown up hearing stories about how awesome Prithviraj was. Without ever meeting him, she fell in love with him. Furious that Prithviraj dissed him, Jayachandra decided to humiliate his rival. He set up a swayamvara, or a husband-choosing ceremony, for Sanyogita, and invited every prince except Umaranate, Prithviraj. To make it even worse, he made a clay statue of Prithviraj and put it by the door, basically making him the doorman. It was the medieval version of tagging your rival in a meme, where he's the bouncer at your party. When the ceremony started, Sanyogata walked past all the kings and princes with the ceremonial garland. She ignored every single one of them, went to the entrance, and put the garland on the clay statue. At that exact moment, Prithviraj, who was hiding nearby with his crew, burst in. He swept Sanyogata up, put her on his horse, and fought his way out of Kannauj, eloping with her back to Delhi. This crazy move was a huge insult to Jayachandra, leaving him desperate for revenge. Whether it was because of a girl or just political beef, the rivalry between Prithviraj and Jayachandra was real. This disunity between the most powerful Hindu kingdoms was a fatal mistake. You know how a bundle of sticks is strong, but one stick breaks easily? The great Rajput kingdoms had all become single sticks, ready to be snapped. And just as things were getting bad, a storm was brewing in the northwest. Muhammad of Ghor was marching to India again, and this time, Prithviraj would have to face him pretty much alone. The First Battle of Tarain, 1191 CE, the famous battle in Chauhan's history, let us explore all battles in their dynasty. By the late 12th century, the Ghurid Empire in modern-day Afghanistan had become a military juggernaut under its ambitious sultan, Muhammad of Ghor. He wanted to conquer the rich lands of Hindustan, but the powerful Chauhan kingdom was standing in his way. A fight was about to go down. Before 1191 CE, Muhammad of Ghor's army captured the strategic fort of Tabar-Hinda, which is probably modern-day Bathinda. This was a direct attack, and Prithviraj Chauhan immediately gathered his forces, calling his allies to help him kick the invader out. The two armies met on the fields of Tarain, about 150 kilometers north of Delhi, in the year 1191 CE. Prithviraj's army was probably bigger, and leading his charge was Govind Rai, the ruler of Delhi. The battle started as a total clash of styles. The Ghurids were like a swarm of hornets, with their light cavalry zooming around and shooting arrows from a distance. But the Chauhans were like a charging bull. They did not break. Instead, Prithviraj launched a massive counterattack, smashing into the Ghurid lines from three sides. The Rajputs loved up-close, aggressive fighting, and their pure force started to crush the Ghurid army. Seeing his army about to collapse, Muhammad of Ghor did something desperate. He personally led a charge straight at Govind Rai. The duel that followed was the biggest moment of the battle. Muhammad of Ghor threw his lance and hit Govind Rai in the mouth, breaking two of his teeth. Wounded but not out, Govind Rai threw his own javelin back, hitting the Sultan in the upper arm and wounding him badly. Stunned by the wound, Muhammad of Ghor started to fall back. If it wasn't for a young Khalji soldier who recognized him and got him off the battlefield, he would have been captured or killed. The sight of their leader running away completely destroyed the Ghurid army's morale. What was a retreat turned into a total panicked run. The victorious Rajput army chased them for almost 40 kilometers before Prithviraj finally called them off. With the invader gone, Prithviraj surrounded the captured fort of Tabar Hinda, which gave up after 13 months. The First Battle of Tarain was a massive victory for Prithviraj Chauhan. He was celebrated as the savior of Hindustan, but back in Ghazni, a wounded and humiliated sultan was planning his revenge. The incredible victory at Tarain was only the end of round one. The Second Battle of Tarain, 1192 CE, of Chauhan's dynasty. The victory at Tarain made Prithviraj Chauhan and his allies feel unstoppable. They were so confident that they thought the Ghurid threat was over. This was a gigantic strategic mistake, like winning the first half of a championship and celebrating at halftime, thinking your opponent won't come back with a new plan. While Prithviraj tried to make new alliances, his earlier wars meant he didn't have many real friends left. The beef with Jayachandra of Kannauj, who supposedly refused to help, meant that any Rajput alliance would be super weak. On the other side, Muhammad of Ghor spent the next year in a hardcore training montage. Humiliated, he swore he wouldn't enjoy any luxuries until he got his revenge. He rebuilt his army, focusing on discipline, speed, and cavalry tactics. He put together a terrifying force of 120,000 elite Turkish mounted archers, a super mobile army built for a totally different kind of war. In 1192 CE, exactly 1 year later, Muhammad of Ghor came back. He quickly retook Tabar Hinda and sent a message demanding Prithviraj surrender. Prithviraj basically laughed it off and marched to face him on the exact same battlefield, Tarain. This time, however, Muhammad of Ghor was playing 4D chess. He pretended he wanted a truce, tricking the Rajput camp into thinking everything was cool and relaxing. It was a trap. Knowing that Rajputs had a rule against fighting at night, he launched a crazy plan. Before sunrise, a part of the Ghurid army launched a surprise attack on the sleeping Chauhan camp. The Rajputs were caught completely off guard. As the sun came up, the main battle began. Muhammad of Ghor was like a master fisherman. He sent 4 divisions of mounted archers to attack the Rajput army from the sides and back, using fake retreats as bait. The plan was simple: shoot arrows, and when they charge you, pretend to run away. For hours, the Rajputs charged the fleeing Ghurids, who just pulled them further out, hit them with more arrows, and wore them down like a fish tiring itself out on the line. The huge Rajput army was getting exhausted, and its formations were a mess. Late in the afternoon, with the Rajputs tired and disorganized, Muhammad of Ghor unleashed his master plan. He had been holding a 5th division of 12,000 of his best, heavily armored cavalry in reserve. As the tired Rajputs chased another fake retreat, this fresh, elite force, his knockout punch, smashed into their back. Attacked from all sides, exhausted, and with their leaders in chaos, the once unbeatable Chauhan army just collapsed. Prithviraj Chauhan was captured. What happened to him next is debated. Some historians say he was taken to Ajmer to rule for the Ghurids, but was executed for trying to rebel. The more popular legend from the Prithviraj Rasoi claims he was taken to Ghazni, blinded, and later managed to kill Muhammad of Ghor with an impossible archery shot before taking his own life. Whatever the truth is, the result was an absolute disaster. The Second Battle of Tarain was a catastrophic defeat. It wasn't just losing a battle, it was the end of an empire. This defeat shattered Rajput resistance and opened the door for Turkic rule in North India. The road to Delhi was now wide open. Respected fellows, let us understand the fragmentation and decline of Chauhan Dynasty. The defeat and death of Prithviraj Chauhan at Tarain was an earthquake that completely broke the political map of northern India. It didn't just end one king's rule, it ended the entire era of Chauhan dominance. Right after the battle, Muhammad of Ghor put his most trusted general, Qutb-ud-Din Aibak, in charge of the conquered lands. Aibak moved with insane efficiency, capturing key forts and crushing what was left of the Chauhan resistance. To control the locals, the Gurids tried a classic puppet master move. They put Govindaraja IV, Prithviraj's son, on the throne in Ajmer as their vassal. This was a classic divide and rule tactic, putting a familiar Chauhan face on Gurid control. But the surviving Chauhans refused to work for a collaborator. Prithviraj's brother, Vigraharaja, rebelled, kicked his nephew off the throne, and briefly took back Ajmer. Forced to flee, Govindaraja went east and started a new, smaller Chauhan kingdom at Ranthambore. This was the beginning of a new branch of the Chauhans, one that would fight the Delhi Sultanate for over 100 years. But Vigraharaja's control over Ajmer didn't last. In 1194 CE, Ibik marched on the city again. Facing certain defeat, Vigraharaja chose to commit Jauhar, self-immolation, instead of being captured. With his death, direct Chauhan rule in their imperial capital of Ajmer came to a final, tragic end. The fall of Ajmer made the dynasty shatter even faster. The great Chauhan Empire was like a broken mirror. The one big picture was gone, but lots of sharp, tough pieces were left. While the main line of the dynasty was wiped out, its offshoots were incredibly resilient. In southwestern Rajasthan, the Chauhans of Nadal and Jalori made their own little kingdoms. In the Hadoti region, the Hada Chauhans created the powerful states of Bundi and later Kota. The Deora Chauhans founded a kingdom in Sirohi. These new states never became an empire again, but they became important local powers that kept their freedom for centuries. The Chauhans, once masters of an empire, were now scattered. Their power was smaller, but their will to fight was unbroken. The most famous of these new states, Ranthambore, would become a legendary symbol of Rajput defiance, carrying the legacy of their ancestors into a new and chaotic era. Who were the successor states and continued resistance? This question is important to understand. The fall of Ajmer wasn't the end of the Chauhan. It was a transformation. Even though their empire was destroyed, the dynasty survived and even thrived in different parts of Rajasthan, becoming new centers of resistance against the New Delhi Sultanate. The most powerful of these new kingdoms was Ranthambore. Founded by Prithviraj's son, Govindaraja, its insane fort made it a base of pure defiance. The kingdom hit its peak under Hamir Dev Chauhan in the late 13th century. A proud and fierce warrior just like his ancestors, Hamir Dev expanded his kingdom and fought off early invasions from the Sultanate. His defiance, however, attracted the attention of one of the most ruthless rulers of the Delhi Sultanate, Alauddin Khilji. In 1301 CE, after a long and legendary siege, Khilji conquered Ranthambore. Hamir Dev was killed in the final battle, and the women of the fort committed Jauhar. The fall of Ranthambore was a huge blow, but it made Hamir Dev a legend of Rajput bravery forever. Another important branch was the Songara Chauhans of Jalore. They fiercely protected their freedom for over a century until they, too, were finally conquered by Alauddin Khilji. Further east, the Hada branch founded the kingdom of Bundi, which became a major center for Rajput culture, art, and architecture. Later, a family split created the neighboring state of Kota. These states were masters of political survival, like expert sailors navigating a ship through a permanent storm, sometimes using the winds of a big empire to their advantage, other times fighting against it, but always keeping their own identity. The story of these successor states is so important. It proves that the Chauhan spirit did not die in 1192. It adapted and survived. Through these tough kingdoms, the Chauhans continued to shape Rajasthan's destiny for another 600 years. Their long-term resistance became a key part of the Rajput identity, an identity built on defiance, honor, and a crazy attachment to their land. I am Czar from Czar and Truth. If you thought this journey through the Chauhan dynasty's history was insane, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the epic history of India. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Let us know in the comments which dynasty you want us to cover next. The saga of the Chauhan dynasty, which spans over 6 centuries, is like a highlight reel of medieval Indian history. They started as local chiefs and, with ambition, skill, and genius strategy, they rose to become the imperial masters of northern India. Their achievements were monumental. Rulers like Vigraharaja IV not only captured the ultimate prize of Delhi, but also created a golden age of culture. They were protectors of their land and a massive wall against early invasions. Their legacy is carved in stone all over Rajasthan, from the insane battlements of Taragar Fort to the defiant ruins of Ranthambore. But their story is also a huge warning. The same ambition that made them powerful also led to their downfall. Prithviraj Chauhan's aggressive expansion created a circle of angry rivals. This lack of unity was fatal when they faced the disciplined armies of Muhammad of Ghor. The defeat at Tarain wasn't just the failure of one king, but of an entire political system that failed to team up. But the fall of Prithviraj was not the end. The story of Chauhan resistance went on for centuries through the successor states of Ranthambore, Jalori, Bundi, and Sirohi. They carried the Chauhan legacy through the chaotic eras of the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal Empire, making sure the name Chauhan would always mean Rajput valor. Today, Prithviraj Chauhan is remembered as a tragic hero, the last great Hindu emperor of Delhi. But beyond the legends, the Chauhan's historical impact is undeniable. A pivotal dynasty that shaped northern India for centuries, and whose legacy still echoes in the forts, temples, and heroic tales of Rajasthan.